With the drought in UFC content that we have right now, I was so excited and I already want to talk about UFC 311. The full card is already out for us, and I gotta say, I am actually looking forward to every single fight, with the exception of one that I actually don't even hate, but regardless, this card is stacked, so why not talk about it? The fight's complete and get it out a couple weeks early. Hello everybody, and welcome back to another video. If you are new here, my name is Kyle. I am your guy with many YouTube channels. Guys, we're going to be predicting this full card breakdown with timestamps. If you'd like to skip to any part of the video, I'm going to be just talking about the fights, breaking them down as much as I can. I'm going to be talking about the fighters I'd like to see win, and we're going to be taking a look at betting odds. This is your complete guide to when it comes to UFC fights. Thank you so much for being here, guys. Let's get straight into it for today. Tagir Ulanbekov versus Clayton Carpenter. We're starting off the card with already quite a high level of fight. Tagir Ulanbekov trains at Eagle MMA. He's one of those guys. He is a dangerous grappler with a high pace, takedowns, nice sneaky sweeps, and solid control. His striking to back that up is also pretty good. He has a strong clinch game. He has a nice, really solid, crisp jab. I was going to say clinch. And he's taking on Clayton Carpenter, who is a very experienced mixed martial artist with great grappling, pressure, and aggression. He has really nice entries on his takedown. He has nice ground and pound. He has nice submissions. It's two fighters that can really do really nice work on the ground. But I would say when it comes to the feet, I think that Tagir Ulanbekov has what it takes to defeat Clayton Carpenter. We did see Clayton Carpenter return after a little bit of a layoff against Lucas Rocha, and he had a really nice performance. He was looking really good on his comeback. But in saying this, though, Clayton Carpenter, I don't believe he has taken on the competition, with the exception of Edgar Sherez, which is, in my opinion, is a really, really good win. I think that Edgar Sherez is a very underrated fighter. He's undefeated. He's looked great so far, but I do like the work that I've seen from Tagir Ulanbekov, and he has that weird loss to Tim Elliott, which Tim Elliott's a very, very sneaky fighter. He's one of those guys with the Michael Johnson effect. He can kind of beat anybody on any given day, so I don't really take too much away from that, but regardless, he got a nice win over Cody Durden and Nate Maness. I think those wins are really, really good, and I do believe if this fight goes to the ground, I would give a slight edge to Tagir Ulanbekov, especially, of course, we all have to look at the Eagle MMA guys. I'm sure that he has what it takes to take on Clayton Carpenter on the ground, because when we look at Clayton Carpenter, we look at this guy who is an absolute monster, very experienced when it comes to groundwork. I think where Tagir Ulanbekov can separate himself is in the striking department. He has a little bit of a reach advantage. That matters when you have a guy who has as good of a jab as that Tagir Ulanbekov has. I think that Clayton Carpenter is great, but I am going to be picking Tagir Ulanbekov to get the win. And to be honest with you, when it comes to who I'd like to see win this fight, I personally don't really care about this one. But let's take a look at, I switched everything on around here. Let's take a look at Odds Jam. We have Clayton Carpenter, Tagir Ulanbekov. Average odds are minus 266 for Tagir Ulanbekov. To be honest with you, that makes sense. I'm decently confident that he gets a job done, but Clayton Carpenter isn't anybody to just completely write off. I will say that. All right, guys, let's move on to the next fight. We have Grant Dawson taking on Diego Ferreira. I am so excited for this fight. I like watching Grant Dawson's work, but I am a big fan of Diego Ferreira, especially, you know what? I'll talk about him right now because he had his rough go. He has a good record. He's 19-5. He took a long layoff after a few tough losses. Came back against Michael Johnson, got a beautiful finish, and then had the incredible performance with Mateusz Rebecki. I don't remember if he was 40 years old. I don't remember if he was 39 years old. Regardless, a lot of people were overlooking Diego Ferreira, and I am proud to say that I was not. This is one of those guys that Father Time has not caught up with him yet, and I think he's incredible, man. Diego Ferreira, I love watching fight. He is a dangerous grappler with sneaky good striking to back it up. He's well-rounded. He has a ton of experience. He can fight at all aspects of MMA at a very high level. And like I said, he's 40 years old. Father Time still has not caught up with him. He is an incredible fighter for his old age. Just in his last fight against a very, very respected opponent in Mateusz Rebecki. I don't remember exactly how much success Rebecki was having in the first round, but I remember there being a very early storm that he had to weather, but he used incredible counters, and once he started getting his own work going, he started really getting the better of Rebecki, and then he just turned it on, showed every aspect of MMA, used it to get the win over a very, very respected opponent. The reason that I keep talking about this win is because Rebecki, and we all know, especially with what Rebecki just went through in his last fight, man, he is a great fighter in himself. My point being, Diego Ferreira, at 40 years old, still is an animal. Grant Dawson, on the other hand, After we saw him get a finish by Bobby Green, he's come back with 2 really nice wins over Rafa Garcia and Joe Solecki. There's not a ton to break down about Grant Dawson. He's a grappler with great control, transitions, and he's great at maintaining top game. When he chooses to, he can have incredible ground and pound, but he doesn't always go that route. Sometimes he goes for the control submission route of things. So, here's the thing, guys, okay? Here's the thing. I'm picking Grant Dawson to win, but I could very well see this being the parlay buster. I really, really could. When I make the betting guide video, this is either going to be an underdog opportunity or a fight to not bet on. I think it's crazy. I actually think it's crazy to bet on Grant Dawson. Grant Dawson, aside from Damir Ismagulov, yep, right here is just before Bobby Green, excuse me. Aside from Damir Ismagulov, it's still surprising that Grant Dawson would look as good as he does in that fight. But hey, you know what? Maybe it just goes to show his skill level. I think that Diego Ferreira is the best fighter that he's taking on. Diego Ferreira is one of those guys that can not only survive the ground positions, but he could also perhaps sweep Grant Dawson. I don't know if either guy will be able to submit each other, but Diego Ferreira is a very, very dangerous grappler in himself. If they're dry, if the fight goes to the ground right away, and Grant Dawson goes and does what he wants to do and take Diego Ferreira down, will he even be able to do that? I'm saying Diego Ferreira can match Grant Dawson on the ground and probably have some success, and I do believe that he is the better striker. In saying that, though, I like the momentum that Grant Dawson's been on. I've been following Grant Dawson, and I know that he's supposedly putting in all of the work necessary into becoming champion. He's in his prime right now. He's improving. His loss to Bobby Green was a very, very early stop, like not early stoppage, but I mean like he got caught, you know? It happens to every fighter. I'm still going to pick Grant Dawson to get the win, but I would not be shocked one bit if this one was a parlay buster. Diego Ferreira is an animal, and I like Grant Dawson, man, I do, but I hope Diego Ferreira gets the job done. I love watching this dude fight, been a fan of him for a very, very long time. Let's take a look at the odds, and you can see that Grant Dawson is a sizable favorite. This is an underdog opportunity. I hope in saying all of this, that Diego Ferreira doesn't get absolutely destroyed. Let's see, you have an over 2.5 rounds, and you know what? That's not too bad, actually. Like, Diego Ferreira can last, man. I'm telling you, even if he's losing, he can last. I am confident in saying that at least. All right, guys, let's move on to the next fight over here. We have Ricky Turcious taking on Benardo Sopaj. We have Ricky Turcious, who is a very versatile fighter who doesn't exactly shine anywhere. He's one of those guys, but he is just pretty good. He can weaponize pace, and when he does, he can at times be very tough to deal with. Unfortunately, Ricky Turcious, and I always feel bad saying this type of stuff about fighters, man, but I think that he's one of the lower level fighters in the division. He's taking on Benardo Sopaj, who's coming off of a really, really rough UFC debut against Vinicius Oliveira. But even in saying that, though, man, like he took on a tough opponent, a very, very tough opponent for his UFC debut, and I think that he is capable of much more great things. He is a fast striker with really nice speed, pretty decent power for the division. He has good movement, pressure, combinations. He's not useless when it comes to the groundwork, but he does have nice takedown defense to keep things on the feet. He wants to stay striking. He does a good job when striking. And, guys, I got to say, I think that he is a better striker than Ricky Turcious. I don't have a ton to break down about this fight. He's younger. He's still improving. He's going to be insanely hungry. You just always got to worry, right? When you get knocked out the way that Oliveira knocked him out, sometimes somebody's chin can crack after that. But even then, like, Ricky Turcious doesn't necessarily have the power to put out Benardo Sopaj. I don't think if he wants to work in the ground game, I don't think that he's going to be able to take Benardo Sopaj down. I'm fairly confident that Sopaj gets the job done here. Like I said, not a ton to break down with that one. Let's take a look at what OddsJam is saying about this. Benardo Sopaj sitting at a minus 306 for the average odds. Unfortunately, that makes sense. I wish I could break that one down a little bit more for you, but I'm picking Benardo Sopaj to get the W. Now, guys, let's continue on up the card. We have another really, really fun fight. The return of Payton Talbott taking on Raoni Barcelos. I apologize. I always forget if the R is pronounced in his name. Regardless, we have Payton Talbott, man. One of the biggest prospects in MMA right now. He is a very good, flashy striker, solid movement and volume. He can strike and grapple as well. He is 100% though a better striker than he is a grappler. He moves forward seemingly like a brick wall. This dude seems like you just cannot touch him when he's on his forward momentum. And that's what, like, he carries some sort of aura into the octagon, right? And I will say, and I think I talked about this before the Yanis Gomori fight, I was underrating Payton Talbott. I thought that he hasn't shown enough, and I was like, you know what? I'm not getting the hype behind this guy. But boy, was I wrong when he demolished Cameron Simon the way that he did. And they got a really quick finish against Yanis Gomori. He's taking on Raoni Barcelos, though, who is a well-rounded fighter with good volume and pace. He can fight at a high level, is capable of just dragging himself into wars and coming out looking really good about it. He has a ground game to back all of that out. Now, the elephant in the room is he is an aging fighter in the bantamweight division. He's almost 38 years old, but while he is slowing down, he still is a very capable fighter. He is nowhere near washed. And I know his last 5 fights haven't looked all that good, but he's taken on some really, really tough competition in both Umar Nurmagomedov and Kyler Phillips, and he has looked good even in some of his losses. Then he got a really nice win over Christian Quinones. Like, he is still a very, very capable fighter, and while I do think that Payton Talbott's probably going to walk through him, it's not like they're just feeding Payton Talbott a nobody to get the win. I get, like, a lot, because I see a lot of people talking about that online. They're just, like, feeding him another nobody name value-wise, but Raoni Barcelos is a really, really good fighter, respected fighter. Is he the best fighter? No, he's not nearly the best fighter, but this is a really, really solid test for Payton Talbott, and I do think that he's going to pass the test. I don't know what it's going to take to stop Payton Talbott. I'm probably going to pick against him when it comes to somebody towards the top 15. That's when we're going to get the answers for how good is Payton Talbott really, but I do think he is better than Raoni Barcelos at this point in his career. I think that he's going to walk forward. I don't think that anything Barcelos is going to do to him is really going to have all that much of an effect. And I think that Payton Talbott is going to come out, getting another win, getting another finish, looking fantastic. My pick is officially going to be Payton Talbott, but I would like to see Barcelos get the upset here. He's had a rough few fights lately, and they've been fed to quite a few names, okay? I want Raoni Barcelos to get the win here. Let's take a look at Odds Jam, and I can't wait. It's probably going to, yep. I was going to say, it's probably going to be something ridiculous. There you go. Payton Talbott sitting at a minus 1,095 favorite. That's wild. The over 1.5 is interesting, though. That's not worth it at all. Not worth it one little bit. Pick's going to be Payton Talbott. Makes sense to me. All right, guys, let's move on. Let's move on to the next fight. If you've been following the channel, you might know why I'm starting to laugh a little bit. Reese taking on Sedriques Dumas. I have been extremely critical of Sedriques Dumas. I have nothing against him personally. I don't know anything about him personally. I just think that he is an extremely low-level fighter. I have picked against him in the Cody Brundage fight. I've picked against him in the Abu Zaitar fight. I've picked against him in the Ruslan Ruziboev fight. And I've picked against him in the Dennis Tululin fight. And I lost money betting on Dennis Tululin. I believe, and I always feel bad saying this because I don't mean to be disrespectful, but I am breaking down fights here. I don't think he's good. I just don't. Here's the breakdown for him. He's supposedly a good striker, but he comes into fights and does nothing. I will say, though, it changed a little bit, okay? At least he tried to win against Dennis Tululin. It still shocked me, but Reese, on the other hand, let's talk about Reese. He's a very well-rounded and powerful fighter with slick technique in all aspects of MMA. He has great body kicks. He's very strong. He has great control and great power into every single shot that he throws. He's one of those guys that looks to hurt his opponent no matter where he is, whether it's on the feet, whether it's on the ground. He wants to actually inflict pain on his opponents. Now, what's interesting is because recently about Reese, we saw him outside of the first round. He's never faded, but he certainly has shown to slow down, okay? I do believe, though, I don't believe it's just one of those, like, random cardio issues. I think it's because he literally tries to kill you with every single shot that he throws. He really tries to finish his opponents, okay? So, we do have to worry about that with Reese now. If he's outside the first round, if there's a fighter that wants to drag him into deep waters, they could probably get the victory over Reese. But he's looked good, man. He had the weird loss to Cody Brundage in a Cody Brundage style fight. But other than that, we have seen, as expected from Reese, to get the win over Julian Marquez and Jose Medina. Like, this dude really seems to have a bright future. I believe it's a bright future, and I believe that this is such a difference in levels here that Reese would be the shock. It would be the shock of the year so far. And I know we've only seen 2 cards, but man, there's no way that Sedriques Dumas gets past a contender like Reese. I don't understand how he managed to get 3 wins recently. I don't get it. He does nothing in the octagon aside from his last fight. At least he tried. No, Reese is going to beat him. And I don't even know if I want to bet this time around because, like, again, I lost money on the Dennis Tululin thing. I just don't think he's good, man. I don't think he's good. I want Reese to win. I think he's going to win. Let's take a look at what the odds are and Odds Jam over here. Yo, Reese sitting at a minus 261 favorite. I think it should be more. Like, he's probably my most confident pick on the card. He must be. Like, I don't, maybe we'll talk about it the more we go on, but man, Zach Reese should absolutely win this fight. All right, guys, let's move on to the, the fight of the card. Karol Rosa taking on Ailin Perez. I mean, like, I'm not really looking forward to this one, but I mean, if we're going to have a fight in this division, you know what? Karol Rosa, Ailin Perez, I'm here for it, okay? Karol Rosa, high volume striker who can fight anywhere. She pushes a really good pace and seems to be improving from fight to fight. I don't know if she's actually number 10. I don't know where she sits in the UFC rankings, but Tapology has her at number 10 regardless. Every single time that she shows up, her leg kick seems to be looking better too. Like, she is like one of those fighters that, like I said, she slightly improves every single time that we see here. Ailin Perez, on the other hand, she's primarily a grappler. She does well on the offense. She has good ground and pound. She has decent submissions, and she has good heart compared to the division. She's on a 4-fight win streak right now, but unfortunately, I don't look at that win streak like as if it's anything necessarily impressive. Like, I'm more impressed by Karol Rosa in the few wins that she's got and the competitions that she's taken on compared to Ailin Perez. Still nothing to write home about, but it's just the question. It's one of those striker versus grappler matchups. Can Ailin Perez get the takedown? Can Karol Rosa defend the takedowns? I think that she can. I think that the leg kicks will have success against Ailin Perez. But then again, like, you got to think about it. If this is something that goes to the judges, there's been critiques recently that I've been listening to with the judges that they count control time when it comes to WMMA fights, and I got to pay a little bit more attention to see if they're actually doing that. But I just imagine that the UFC will want to get the clips of Ailin Perez twerking along the cage or something. So if it's a close fight, they'll probably give it to her. Who really wants to see Karol Rosa? Honestly, like, I think that stuff needs to be taken into consideration. I would imagine this fight will go over 1.5 rounds. That'll be something I'm looking into personally. I'm going to pick Karol Rosa, though. I think that she's just better. At least I've looked at Karol Rosa, and I go, you know what? This girl has some potential. She has some potential. I don't think that of Ailin Perez. So I'm going to pick Karol Rosa. I'm going to pick her to win. Hope she gets the job done. Not necessarily a big fan of Ailin Perez, and you can see the odds are pretty close over here. Karol Rosa sitting at a minus 179 favorite, and unfortunately, the over 2.5 rounds is sitting at minus 400. What can we do with that? Maybe the fun parlay, but regardless, man, I'm picking Karol Rosa to get the job done. All right, guys, let's continue on up the card. We have a Johnny Walker taking on Bogdan Guskov. Very interesting fight for the division, actually, because I think, I was going to say, like, I think we can figure out where Bogdan belongs in the division, but then again, he got a win over Ryan Spann, probably somewhere around there, so ignore what I just said. Johnny Walker, he is a very big and athletic striker. He can be technical at times, but he shines when he's wild, and he has nuclear power throwing all over the place. When he does that, he turns it into a 50-50 fight because the dude has no chin. He's incredibly wild, incredibly powerful. So he turns it, like I said, into a 50-50 fight when, depending on whether or not he wants to fight technical or not. Sometimes he can fight technical, and if that's the case, then he looks okay, technically. Nothing to write home about. Bogdan Guskov, on the other hand, he's an aggressive striker who always comes out looking for the finish. He's particularly dangerous in the first round. He always possesses that fight-ending power. He can beat technically, and at times he does show up low volume, so that's important to note. I could see this fight actually being one of those, like, weird Johnny Walker, Anthony Smith type fights where there's not a ton going on, and then all the fans are sitting back saying, man, what happened to the light heavyweight division? You guys remember when Alexander Gustafsson, Glover Teixeira, Rashad Evans, all of them were at the top? I miss Rumble Johnson. Like, I can see that being the conversation after this fight's over, or I can see a violent finish from one of these guys, okay? This is close to a 50-50 fight, and it's always like that with Johnny Walker, man. But at this point, Johnny Walker's chin is so glass that it's not even a 50-50 fight. Like, I would feel like Johnny Walker at this point has a 40% winning, period. Like, no matter what, I think that he's most likely going to lose, but he can win with the power that he possesses, especially because Bogdan isn't that good, right? They're going to strike. I could actually see this one being a little bit of slow pace, but I'm going to go with the 32-year-old. I'm not going to trust Johnny Walker and his chin at this point in his career. He does have a reach advantage, but he doesn't even use it all that much. I'm going to pick Bogdan Guskov. This is certainly not a fight to bet on, and honestly, I hope he gets a job done. I'd like to see him win. I mean, I don't really care all that much, but I'm not a big fan of Johnny Walker. Anyways, Bogdan Guskov sitting at a slight favorite. I wouldn't touch his fight. Ooh, what's the over? Yeah, over 1.5 for Johnny Walker, plus 116. That's crazy. You know what? I actually can see that hitting. I can see it. I see a world where it's a slow pace. I just do for this one. Regardless, I'm picking Bogdan Guskov. Low confidence, but if I had to pick, he's going to get the job done. All right, guys, let's move on to the next fight. And I actually think that this is another really, really tough fight to pick. We have Jailton Almeida versus Sergey Spivak. I'm actually really excited to see this fight because I don't know who's going to get on top of this one. Regardless, we have Jailton Almeida, strong grappler who will do anything to dive at your legs and keep you on the ground. That's all he wants to do. He wants to submit you. He wants to hold you. Sergey Spivak, on the other hand, he is a decent and improving boxer with really good throws and pretty good BJJ and absolutely violent ground and pound. Not a ton to break down with either fighter. Sergey Spivak came back and actually got a really nice win over Marcin Tybura when a lot of people were actually counting him out. I don't recall who I thought won this fight. I thought it was going to be close, but regardless, when it comes to this matchup, it's two really strong grapplers. I would imagine that Jailton's going to be slightly stronger, but Sergey Spivak has been dealing with heavyweights for a very long time, so maybe he could be able to throw Jailton Almeida, catch him off guard. I don't know. I don't know who's going to win this fight, man. I kind of want to pick Jailton Almeida. Don't get me wrong, I think it's a 50-50 fight. But if you made me pick, I'm going to go with Sergey Spivak because I believe him to be more dangerous. He has the ground and pound. He has the sneaky throws. He has improving boxing. What if he can defend the takedowns against Jailton Almeida? What if he can sweep? I think he's more dangerous. Therefore, I'm going to pick him. In saying that, though, I'm not confident in that whatsoever. I see this one being a 50-50, and I would imagine that Jailton Almeida is the favorite here, and also I would like to see Sergey Spivak get the win. I always think about MMA Guru going, Sergey Spivak, I'd love to fight him, just doing the Aspinall impression. I know, like, I make pitiful impressions, but you get the point. I think of that every single time I see Sergey Spivak. Anyways, we have Sergey Spivak sitting at an underdog of plus 243, Jailton Almeida minus 311. I kind of get that, and I understand why people pick Jailton Almeida. I think this one's a 50-50 fight. Average odds over 1.5. I don't like this fight for over 1.5. I think everything about this fight is honestly too unpredictable for me. I'm going to leave it alone, but I'm going to go with Sergey Spivak. All right, guys, let's continue on over to the featured prelim. We have Rinya Nakamura taking on Muin Gafarov. Rinya Nakamura, he's a decently well-rounded fighter with really nice power and wrestling to back that up. The striking technique could use some work, but the aggression that he shows in general is so good that it ends up like working out when he's just coming forward, right? He has good takedowns, he has nice ground and pound, and I will say that we've recently seen from him especially, his BJJ defense is incredible. He's very patient, and he fights through things so perfectly and so calmly. He also, and I always love when fighters do this, I think fighters need to do this more often, he punches his way out of submissions. If he's in danger on the ground, he can do that sometimes, and I think that's an incredible way to escape submissions in MMA. Anyways, he's taking on Muin Gafarov, who's a come-forward fighter who unfortunately lacks hard technique. On some night, he's one of those fighters like, who are we just talking about? Why am I having a blank on that? Regardless, on some nights, he comes up and he shows that he has good technique. Sometimes Johnny Walker. Sometimes he shows up, he has good technique. Sometimes he shows up, he doesn't have good technique. But he is pretty consistent when it comes to that department. I will say, though, he has a lot of heart. I've been watching Muin Gafarov for a very long time. He was successful in the LFA, but then had a rough go in the UFC so far. But to be fair, he took on some good competition. Then I almost said unfortunately, got the win against Kan Ho Kang. Rinya Nakamura, he has a few UFC fights now, and he's looked very dominant in those fights. But the thing is, I'm waiting for him to get fraud checked. I'm waiting for it. I'm not saying that he will. Like, I believe he's a very capable fighter. His skill is very real. And fraud check wasn't the right wording for it, I would say. I just don't believe he's this killer that he's been made out to be so far. I need to see him against someone who is very capable in order to say, like, okay, this dude's the real deal. But from what we've seen so far, his skill, the technique is pretty well everywhere. Like, he can be caught on the chin. That's what I'm saying. I'm waiting for that to happen. Not because I don't like him or anything. None of what I'm saying is coming out properly right now. I'm just not convinced yet, okay? That's what I mean. However, I'm convinced that he's good enough to beat Muin Gafarov. I think that he's just more dangerous. I don't think that Muin Gafarov can even, like, chin him. I think Rinya Nakamura has more tools. I think he's going to get the job done. I think his presence in there is enough to overwhelm Muin Gafarov, and I think that he's just going to win. I think Rinya Nakamura is going to get the victory. I don't know if he's going to get the finish, but regardless, I think he's better. That's all. My point in all that is I'm not convinced of Rinya Nakamura yet. Let's take a look at Odds Jam over here, and you can see that Rinya Nakamura is a pretty sizable favorite over here. Makes sense. I'm confident in saying that as well. I think, could you imagine, like, this, there could be quite a few parlay busters on this one, because I can see a lot of people also betting on Rinya Nakamura over here. Now, guys, let me stop you for just a second. If you are either interested in supporting the channel or seeing where I'm putting my money where my mouth is, because I talk a lot about betting on this channel, you can check out the channel membership, which is very cheap compared to other channels, in the pinned comment, description down below, or right next to the subscribe button. Every single Thursday or Friday before an event, I will be posting my official plays, what I am exactly doing with my money. I usually bet on UFC every once in a while. You'll have bets on other organizations as well. Regardless, I will have a community post and a members only video explaining exactly what I'm doing. So if you either want to support the channel or combine my fight knowledge with your own research, then consider checking out the membership. Also, the site that we've been using on these videos, OddsJam, is also a partner of the channel. If you're interested in signing up to OddsJam, which you can get for a discount if you use my link in the description down below and pinned comment with the code Clenbat when you go sign up, you can get a discount over there. It is perfect for serious sports bettors, finding the best odds. They're very quick and making it easy to bet with multiple sports books. So if you're one of those people who likes to use different sports books to find the best odds, OddsJam is for you guys. Thank you very much for listening. Let's get into the main card. Now, guys, let's move on to the main card. This fight is going to break my heart because I am big fans of both fighters. Beneil Dariush versus Renato Moicano. I hate this fight. I don't want to watch it. It's going to hurt me. Beneil Dariush is a decently well-rounded fighter. He is primarily a grappler. He has good technique on the feet with heavy hands, and he does have good timing too, but if he gets things working on the ground, this is where he can be a major problem for most fighters. Now, I will say the elephant in the room about Beneil Dariush, he is 35 years old, almost 36 years old, with a lot of wars on his body. He seems to be officially past his prime. His chin might have actually been cracked, which is very sad to see, but we are unsure about that right now because of the two competition levels that he has just faced in Charles Oliveira and Arman Tsarukyan, two very powerful and fantastic fighters, two champions. Other than that, people are forgetting Beneil Dariush was on a beautiful win streak against very good opponents. I know Tony Ferguson was the one that was fed to him, but before that, Beneil's still taking on great competition. Renato Moicano, on the other hand, he is a very tough fighter who is okay everywhere, but he is very good at BJJ and ground and pound. And that ground and pound boy showed in his last fight against Benoit Saint-Denis, dude. Anyways, his striking has been improving each time that we see him, but he still doesn't exactly shine in the striking department. Now, one thing that stands out, and okay, memes aside, I'm not joking right now, okay? One thing that stands out about Renato Moicano is his will to win. He puts himself in the mindset of, I cannot afford to lose. I know we meme about it, but he really does live this, okay? Like, this is the Renato Moicano way. He cannot afford to lose, and he has been shown that he cannot afford to lose in all of his last fights. The Benoit Saint-Denis fight, a lot of people after this have been talking about, like, fraud checking Benoit Saint-Denis. I disagree with that. I think that Benoit Saint-Denis is fantastic, and while perhaps we overrated him to the point where he's championship caliber, he is certainly... he could compete with the top level. Look what he was doing to Dustin Poirier, okay? He can compete with the best of the best. So people are discrediting this win. I absolutely disagree with that. He beyond murdered Benoit Saint-Denis. He had a great takedown right away and ruthlessly broke his face. And I know some fans even believe he got a 10-7 round. I'd have to watch it again to what I think, but I actually think that that's actually in the question. So you have two really dangerous grapplers on the feet. Assuming that Beneil hasn't exited his prime, I would give the edge on the feet to Beneil Dariush. I think he's more scrappy. I think he could have better moments, although neither guy really does shine in the striking department, but Beneil can make it chaotic and Beneil could make it really work on the feet. On the ground, I don't know. It could be one of those scenarios, too, where two grapplers come in and they just end up having a stand-up war, but Beneil's excellent transitions and Otto is crazy dangerous as well. Like, I think both of them really shine on the ground, and if they had a pure jiu-jitsu match or a pure ground and pound match, I don't know who would get the job done. On the feet, like I said, Beneil would get the win over Renato Moicano, but that's assuming that he hasn't lost a step. Here's another thing that's important to take into consideration, okay? Beneil has recently spoken in interviews that he would consider retiring if he loses again. I don't believe that that's a good headspace to really have. It shows that he's doubting himself. He's worried about whether or not his body can do this anymore, because something that he spoke about is his mind is still in the game, but he's unsure if his body can still keep up, and that's what he's trying to figure out. I think if you're going into a fight against Renato Moicano, I think you need to have that mindset of like, yes, absolutely, I'm going to defeat this guy. The doubts are there. That I don't like, and on top of that, he really has been aging. Like, Beneil is all gray now, too. I know that he's 35, 36 years old, but his body has been through a lot with all of these fights. And Renato Moicano hasn't actually been through nearly as many wars. But another thing to notice, Renato Moicano's coming off of... Did he get the surgery? He's coming off an injury at the very least. I don't know if anybody could clear that up in the comments. I would appreciate it. I don't know if he actually came off of surgery. I thought he needed surgery. Could be wrong about that. Regardless, there's asterisks for this fight. There are still questions about Beneil Dariush and whether or not he belongs in this division. Like I said, these 2 losses, people are calling him wash for it. Charles Oliveira, Arman Tsarukyan. Those 2 would beat the vast majority of the division. Okay? And even in the fight with Charles Oliveira, like, he was doing some good work at the very beginning of the fight. He just lost. Okay? I'm not ready to say that Beneil's washed. I'm worried about his mindset. I'm worried about his body. I worry about Moicano and his injury. This fight, I'm going to stay away from betting. Because, like I said, there are asterisks when it comes to both guys. If you made me pick, I'm going to go with Renato Moicano. I like the momentum he's on. Memes aside, the cannot afford to lose mentality is better than the am I washed mentality. But that's one of the reasons why I actually love Beneil Dariush. He's real. He's one of my favorite fighters ever. And Renato Moicano's up there too, man. I really don't want to watch either guy lose. I'm going to pick Renato Moicano, but due to the circumstances with both guys, I could see this fight going either way. I gotta find myself cheering for Beneil. I like him as a person a lot. Big fan of his. Renato Moicano is awesome too. Super entertaining. I like him as a guy too. I hate that this fight was made. I was legitimately hoping this fight would not be made because I don't want to watch either guy lose. Let's take a look at the odds. Oh, to be honest with you, I thought Renato Moicano would be a bigger favorite. I know a lot of people are talking about how washed Beneil Dariush is. But Renato Moicano, man, like, he seems to be on a roll. And I can see why he's the favorite. I'm staying away from this one. I would also suggest you do the same thing. But regardless, I hate this fight so much. Let's continue on over to the next fight, guys. We have Kevin Holland versus Reinier de Riddler. Now, a lot of people have been talking about Reinier de Riddler because of the Gerald Meerschaert performance. And that was 3 weeks ago? No way. Is that accurate? Wow. There's no way that was 3 weeks ago. Am I an idiot? I know it was a recent fight, but really? Maybe it's just the drought of UFC that's been been getting to me. But regardless, okay? Reinier de Riddler, might as well start with him. He is the former double champ at one championship. He is a judo and BJJ fighter with nice throws and timing, dangerous with his submissions. He's super tough. He has okay cardio on the ground, and he has good ground and pound as well. He's always trying to finish his opponents when he is on the ground. If his opponents are able to defend his takedowns, though, on the other hand, he can be beat. His striking is poor. And this is what a lot of people were talking about because he just had his UFC debut against as much as it hurts to say, a older Gerald Meerschaert. I don't want to say washed, but he is a way past his prime Gerald Meerschaert, and it was pretty well a fraud check. The fight was a sloppy mess. Yeah, he won. Yeah, he got the finish, but he just looked horrible. The grappling wasn't bad, but man, the striking in this fight was pitiful. This is something that I spoke about before Reinier de Riddler's debut from One Championship. He has retired at one point, and he was one of those representatives in One Championship that don't exactly represent what One Championship is about, because I always sit back and I always talk about how much of a fan I am of One Championship and their fighters and how much I actually think they could compete with the best in the world. I've said that Reinier de Riddler is not one of those guys. While his groundwork is the real deal, I just wish that we could have got better representation from One Championship over in the UFC. I don't dislike Reinier de Riddler or anything. I'm just saying, like, that's the reality of who he is as a fighter, okay? But he accomplished a lot. There was a short retirement. He's fighting in a different division. Like, Reinier is not the One Championship caliber fighter that I would like to see come over to the UFC. Regardless, he's taking on Kevin Holland. We all know Kevin Holland at this point. Very active, popping on the losses recently, okay? He's an incredible striker who does his best work at length. He has really, really nice, snappy shots. When he chooses to, he seems to have really good confidence. He has good power. And on the ground, he has good scrambles with improving BJJ. This is something that I talk about with Kevin Holland often because he fights often, okay? And I'm going to talk about it again because I'm breaking down these fights. At this point in Kevin Holland's career, I don't know if he's just going to show up now. Sometimes he doesn't show up. Sometimes he comes in and he's treating it like a sparring match. And when he decides to, when he's on, he's very dangerous. I don't know what Kevin Holland's going to show up at this point. He's 26-12. He hasn't showed up in quite a few of his fights. Quite a few. But then again, like against Roman Dolidze, like, he looked like he was trying, but we didn't get to see enough. You know? It's the story of Kevin Holland now. It seems to be that he's accepted that he isn't going to become champion, and he's just showing up for paychecks. If this is a Kevin Holland that's completely turned on, completely trying to win, I think he would kill Reiner de Riddler. I think that he would finish him. I think that he has the scrambles good enough to get out of any danger that Reiner de Riddler can put him in. He would just have to worry about the very, very early part of the fight. And on the feet, it would be night and day. He would catch him and he would finish him. But the problem is, am I going to put confidence that Kevin Holland is going to come out and want to beat Reiner de Riddler? I can't trust it, but I have to pick him. I think that his striking is, and I think I said this already, night and day of a difference. I think it's completely different. Kevin Holland's going to be longer, snappier, crispier, and he could beat Reiner de Riddler. Like, Reiner's striking isn't good. Kevin Holland's grappling defense is improving. His BJJ is improving. I like the scrambles that he's shown. If he doesn't show up, then Reiner de Riddler is going to get the win. That's a story with Kevin Holland nowadays, you know? It's unfortunate, man, because I like Kevin Holland. I hope that he gets a job done. I really like Kevin Holland, but I don't trust him anymore, okay? Let's take a look at the odds. Very close. Kevin Holland's sitting at a slight favorite at minus 151. That makes sense, but again, this is another one of those fights that I really don't believe that people should be betting on. In saying that, though, Kevin Holland is the better fighter. Will he show up, though? My pick is going to be Kevin Holland. By the way, guys, if you have been enjoying this video, please hit like, please subscribe to the channel. We have tons of UFC content, not just betting guides, not just breakdowns. We talk about all things MMA related, which you can find on the channel, and I am your guy with too many YouTube channels. We have many other channels for you to check out if you're interested in the link tree and the description down below or the homepage of the YouTube channel. We have gaming content. We have movie review content. We have variety content. There's lots of things for you to take a look at. So I suggest you take a look if you guys would like to continue watching the content that I put out. And I appreciate your time, by the way. Thank you. Let's get into the featured fight of the card, guys. Yuri Prochazka versus Jamal Hill. This is a big fight. Very, very important for both guys' careers. You have Yuri Prochazka. He is an all-round fighter who literally just uses his will to win. He makes any fight hell, any fight chaos to deal with, and if that's the case, if he can make it so you're just overwhelmed, going through hell, this is where he can dominate the fight. Now, the important part to note over here is that Yuri Prochazka is 32 years old, going on 33, and he eats a ton of shots. As of right now, he's still super durable. The technique has been an issue in his fights. Anybody who fights with good technique, anybody who uses really nice low kicks can get the better of Yuri Prochazka, but still, Yuri will push through and use his will to absolutely try it, and he has one of the hardest and toughest wills to break in the UFC. And so far from what we've seen, the only person able to really break that will is, and it's not even breaking the will, it's just catching him, is Alex Pereira. He's lost to Alex Pereira twice, and I will say this was a short notice fight in the recent Alex Pereira fight, but we did see him get completely knocked out in that fight. You always have to worry about people having their chins cracked, okay? That's something that we need to worry about with Yuri Prochazka. One of these days, his damage taken is going to catch up with him. Is that time now? I don't know. Jamal Hill, on the other hand, not a ton to break down about Jamal Hill. He's a boxer with huge power in his hands, and he has good cardio for his shape. That's pretty well it for the Jamal Hill, okay? Both fighters losing to Alex Pereira, but other than that, Jamal Hill looked good. He was on a win streak against Glover Teixeira, Thiago Santos, Johnny Walker, and Jimmy Crute. Now, you will notice the competition level difference. Jamal Hill made it all the way to the championship. And while Glover Teixeira is a great win, this was clearly not the same Glover Teixeira, and he finally had the fight where Father Time caught up to him. Then he lost to Alex Pereira. I know Jamal Hill will refute this loss over and over again, but it was a perfectly reasonable loss. If you're going to refute any loss, it should be the short notice fight that Yuri Prochazka took. Other than that, Yuri fought a completely different Glover Teixeira. He beat Dominic Reyes in an absolute war, and he beat Alexander Rakic, which he was getting destroyed that fight, but that's the Glover Teixeira, excuse me, that is the Yuri Prochazka way of doing things. I don't know why I said Glover, maybe because he always comes back and gets a win no matter what. Guys, if Yuri's damage hasn't caught up to him, and if his chin is still intact, I believe he's going to win this fight. But if Alex cracked his chin and Jamal Hill touches it, Jamal Hill has the power to put Yuri Prochazka away. I'm not going to bank on that, though. I'm going to pick Yuri Prochazka to win. I think that he is just going to push the pace on Jamal Hill. I don't believe that Jamal Hill has the technique necessary to stop the forward momentum of Yuri Prochazka. He's a great boxer, but I believe Yuri will be able to walk through the damage that Jamal Hill puts on. And I'm also not a Jamal hater, by the way. I think he's a very capable and very good fighter. Another thing to note is that at the time of recording this video, and it is December 28th when I'm recording this video, Jamal Hill, as of 1 or 2 days ago, has said that he's 240 pounds. If you've looked at pictures of Jamal Hill recently, he's got a gut. I don't say that to make fun of him like a lot of the MMA community, but you have a guy who lives the samurai lifestyle of Yuri Prochazka, taking on somebody in Jamal Hill who has been making YouTube videos. It's questionable how much he's been training, and he has a clear gut, and to the point where people are just making like beer jokes about him, okay? And I'm not saying that I don't hate Jamal Hill. I actually like Jamal Hill, and I know that's unpopular to say, but I think it's important to note for a breakdown. You have one guy who is in peak condition versus Jamal Hill, and Jamal Hill is coming off of another injury. I think that the decks are stacked against Jamal Hill right now. It's a very important fight for both guys. If Yuri's chin is still intact, then I believe he's going to get the job done. This is a good matchup for him, and I think he's going to get the win. I don't know if I will consider betting on him. Also, I like both guys, like I said, man. I like Jamal Hill, but I can't not cheer for Yuri Prochazka. I just love watching him fight so much, and he's always putting on a show. He's always putting on a show. He's getting up there to be one of my favorite fighters, man. I hope he gets a job done. Odds are shockingly close. I thought that Yuri would be a bigger favorite, to be honest with you. Guys, let me know what you think about this one in the comments. I'm actually really interested. This is something that I would consider betting on. Those odds, especially if it flips, if I get Yuri Prochazka underdog money, that I'm hitting. That's very interesting, guys. Let me know what you think about that fight. Very good fight, very important fight, and that is only the featured bout. All right, guys, let's get into the co-main event. We have Merab Dvalishvili taking on Umar Nurmagomedov. A very interesting fight for the division. Look at the win streak there, man. Look at the win streak. You know, sometimes it's hard to believe that Merab has 4 losses. But regardless, we have Merab Dvalishvili, who is a wrestler who weaponizes his pace, pressure, and cardio. He walks forward, spams takedowns, and looks to break his opponents. He's definitely, when it comes to the footwork, or excuse me, like striking, I meant when he's working on the feet. I don't know why I just have to over-explain myself sometimes when I say that. Anyways, I will say, he's weaker on his feet, but his striking is improving. For the most part, he just throws things to throw things, but he is extremely hittable, and that's something very important to note. The other thing that I want to note is recently, in the Sean O'Malley fight, which he got a really nice win with, he did fight differently than we've seen him fight in the past, okay? He was very careful, he was taking his time, and he was even making sure to keep his hands up. That's something actually really cool to see from Merab Dvalishvili, okay? Umar Nurmagomedov, on the other hand, there's been a lot of criticism for Umar as of recently, but I will defend that in just a moment. He is a combat sambo world champion. He is an extremely well-rounded fighter. He has that Dagestani sambo wrestling style along with a stand-up game. These guys are improving every single time that we see him, man. He really excels when it comes to his kicks. He does a great job at range. He doesn't always need to just dive in and rush for his opponent's legs. He is a very capable striker as well. He also has 5 rounds of hard, perfect cardio. Here's the question. While he does have nice cardio for 5 rounds, does he have Merab cardio? Can Merab break Umar Nurmagomedov? I see this absolutely going to a decision. And here's the tough thing, okay? I want to talk about the Corey Sandhagen fight. I don't know why everybody is all of a sudden talking about this like, oh, well, you just beat Corey Sandhagen. Why do you get a title shot? I get it. Petr Yan, and I think this too, Petr Yan has done enough and deserves a title fight in the rematch against Merab. Umar also deserves it for beating the top contender in Corey Sandhagen the way he did. This was such a high-level fight. All aspects of MMA were shown, and both guys had their stock go up dramatically. Here's the interesting thing, though. After this, I said to myself, oh my god, he'll beat Merab. He will. But Merab just keeps just making fights look easy, man. He makes people look like they don't belong in there with them. The cardio and durability is just insane. Can he break Umar Nurmagomedov? I don't know. My gut's telling me no, man. I'm going to listen to my gut with this, okay? But did I even finish talking about what I wanted to talk about with Corey Sandhagen? Regardless, Corey Sandhagen's a phenomenal win. It's a top contender. This is a perfect win. You went in such a high-level fight for 5 rounds against Corey Sandhagen, and people are discrediting that. That's crazy. I think he deserves a title fight, and I think that he belongs in the UFC. The reason people are going against it, by the way, is because after that, you get into the opponents that he's been facing. But still, he's looked great. Bekzat is actually a really capable fighter. I understand it's not title-worthy, but Corey Sandhagen's enough. I believe he's top 5 contender, okay? We know that Umar Nurmagomedov has got Islam with him. He's got Khabib with him. Khabib has been talking about he needs to coach this because it's going to be a crazy night for the Nurmagomedovs. Khabib's there working with him. Him and Islam are fighting on the same card. They got to be pushing each other to new heights. I would imagine that he has the cardio necessary to defend against Merab. If you can defend against Merab's cardio, then you can beat him. He's going to be the better striker in there. He's gonna be the better striker. I don't know he's definitely gonna be the better grappler, but the problem is Merab is just strong and imposing. I think that he's gonna be able to defend the takedowns. Merab is not untouchable. He just continuously makes people look like they don't belong in the octagon with him. But that's his pace that he weaponizes. And I think that Umar Nurmagomedov is going to be able to stop Merab's forward movement. I think the striking is going to be completely different. I think that he's in the gym right now training harder than he ever has with Islam and Khabib and everybody else in that gym. I think that he's going to get the job done. I'm picking him to win this fight. I'm picking Merab Dvalishvili to lose. But in saying that, I'm a big fan of Merab. I like Merab. I hope Merab gets the job done. And I have looked at the odds because I was curious when I was getting ready to make this video. I try not to. I try to get an authentic reaction, but I peeked at this one. And I would have been betting on this fight, but I don't like Umar for minus 300. I don't like that. I don't think it's worth it. I will say I do think it should be a little bit closer, but it's crazy that you can get Merab at plus 244 average odds right now. Something that I will probably do is, maybe not. I was going to say, what's the 1.5 going to be like? Over 4.5 is already minus 232. Yeah, I doubt I'm going to touch this fight at all, man. Merab at underdog money is something that a lot of people won't pass up, and I will not blame you for that at all, but I do think that Umar Nurmagomedov is going to get the job done, and he's going to get the win. All right, guys, let's move on to the main event. I'm very, very excited for this fight. We have Islam Makhachev versus Arman Tsarukyan. You know what? I'll say this right now, okay? I've been so back and forth in this fight. If you've been following the channel, you would know that I have been talking about for a little while that I was going to bet on Arman Tsarukyan, but I don't know about that anymore. What's interesting is, after Islam Makhachev's last performance against Dustin Poirier, I said, Arman's going to beat him. Arman's going to beat him. But after Arman Tsarukyan's fight with Charles Oliveira, I said that I don't think he's going to beat Islam Makhachev. I don't know. And now I don't know if I want to bet on this fight at all, okay? But we'll get into it, okay? We all know Islam Makhachev at this point. He's a very complete fighter whose biggest strength is Sambo. He can do everything at the highest level. The only critique that we have of Islam Makhachev is, as the fight goes on, he can be pretty hittable, and Arman Tsarukyan has the power necessary to possibly put him away. Arman Tsarukyan, on the other hand, is a very, very complete fighter. He's technical in all aspects of MMA, but he's also primarily a grappler. No matter what you're good at, Arman Tsarukyan can probably match you. He has great technique everywhere, great fight IQ, durability, heart, cardio. The guy can do it all. This is as high level of a fight as you can possibly get. It is by far the highest level fight on the card. And I have been saying for a long time that I think that Arman Tsarukyan is the guy to get the job done against Islam Makhachev. I think that he can get past the grappling. And I know that you can always bring up their last performance, but the last performance, both fighters were nowhere near to the level they were right now. It was either in 2018 or 2019. I can't remember. Maybe even 2017. I don't think it was that far back, but it was a long time ago when these two fought each other. It's almost to the point where, I mean, it is to the point where I'm not going to consider it. It's a night and day difference. Both guys are fantastic, and if you haven't happened to catch a fight, Islam Makhachev got the win over there. Islam Makhachev has put in such good work against such good fighters. He got the win over Alexander Volkanovski, prime Alexander Volkanovski. Then broke my heart and got a really nice win in a war with Dustin Poirier. Arman Tsarukyan, on the other hand, though, Damir Ismagulov, Joaquim Silva, Beneil Dariush, Charles Oliveira, those are great wins in itself, and he had the loss to Mateusz Gamrot. A lot of people said this is a robbery. I need to watch it again, but I think I did give it to Arman. But regardless, Arman Tsarukyan has consistently showed high-level fights. Even in his fight with Charles Oliveira, this was a fight where both guys' stock went up, in my opinion. It's such a close fight. Before seeing all of the work that they're putting with Khabib and Umar, Islam all together, they got to be pushing themselves to new heights. The way that Khabib's been probably training them is insane. All those other guys at the gym, Islam Makhachev is probably going to come out in peak condition. Do I want to pick against that? I don't know. I was going to bet on Arman Tsarukyan, but now I'm not. I don't like him. Islam and Umar being on the same card is just trouble. I'm 55-45 in my pick here. I'm going to pick Arman Tsarukyan. He's younger. He's hungrier. He's been on a roll. I like that he didn't just come out with a... Here's the thing, okay? The performance... This is why I said that Arman would beat him. Arman wouldn't have the war with Dustin Poirier that Islam Makhachev did. Arman would have ragdolled him. I believe that to my core. I know you want to talk about MMA math, but I believe that. I'm picking Arman Tsarukyan. Tough fight. Not betting on it. Very low confidence. I'm going to pick Arman Tsarukyan to get the job done. And honestly, I like both guys. This is another one of those fights where I don't want to see either guy lose. I almost want Arman Tsarukyan to get the win because of the work that he's put in, man. But I like Islam Makhachev too. I like him a lot. Let's see what Odds Jim has to say about this. I would imagine, Islam Makhachev sitting at a big favorite over here. Minus 383. Let's see what the props are right now. Over 3.5 minus 270. I don't hate that, actually. I don't hate that for like a little sprinkle and a fun parlay. I hope they end up releasing 1.5s for a lot of these fights. But I'm going to pick Arman Tsarukyan. I'm not listening to my gut on that one, but I've been saying it for a very long time, and I'm sticking with it. My pick is going to be Arman Tsarukyan. Guys, let me know what you think about this fantastic card down below. Thank you so much for being here and watching. If you want to continue watching the channel, though, you can check out one of these 2 reaction videos we recently did. I would love to have you guys over there. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Take care.